Every human emits a subtle field, a vibrational signature that extends far beyond the skin and into the fabric of the quantum field. This signature is not defined by the words we speak but by the frequencies generated by our most consistent emotional states. The subconscious mind, which processes reality far faster than our conscious awareness, broadcasts these frequencies continuously, like a beacon searching for a match in the vast sea of possibilities. Fear hums at one wavelength, gratitude radiates at another, and resentment carries its own unique pattern, each one acting as a code that the universe reads and responds to. When you repeatedly dwell in fear, the nervous system calibrates itself to expect threat, and your electromagnetic field organizes in a way that seeks out confirmation. Your body releases neurochemicals aligned with survival, and your perception sharpens toward danger, making you more likely to notice, interpret, and magnetize situations that validate that fear. The opposite happens with gratitude. Your heart's rhythm becomes more coherent, the electromagnetic field grows stronger and more ordered, and you begin to lock onto experiences, people, and synchronicities that resonate with that coherent signal. This process is not mystical in the traditional sense, it is resonance. In physics, systems vibrating at compatible frequencies naturally draw into phase. Your thoughts and emotions are patterns of energy, shaping the electromagnetic blueprint around you. The more consistent the pattern, the more stable and magnetic the signal becomes. Life then mirrors this signal back through events, chance encounters, and opportunities that align with the vibrational code you are transmitting. The subconscious is the transmitter, the universe is the receiver, and the field between them is where probability bends toward the dominant frequency you hold. Neuroscience and biophysics have begun to map the mechanisms by which these inner frequencies influence outer reality. The heart, for example, generates the most powerful electromagnetic field in the human body, up to 60 times greater in amplitude than the brain's electrical field, and research from the Heart Math Institute shows that this field changes dynamically with emotional states. When an individual experiences emotions like appreciation or love, the heart's rhythm shifts into a state of coherence, producing a smooth, ordered waveform that can be measured through heart rate variability, HRV. This coherent pattern not only optimizes brain function through increased synchronization between the heart and brain, but also radiates outward, potentially influencing other biological systems nearby through electromagnetic coupling. On a quantum level, every particle exists in a state of probability until it interacts with a measurement or field that collapses it into a definite state. The human brain and nervous system generate oscillating electromagnetic fields that may interact with these probabilities through resonance effects, an area of research still in its infancy but hinted at by quantum biology studies. Certain proteins in our cells, such as cryptochromes, are sensitive to electromagnetic fields and may play a role in how we align with external frequencies. Studies on quantum coherence in photosynthesis and avian navigation suggest that living systems can harness quantum phenomena in ways previously thought impossible in warm, noisy environments like the body. Psychoneuroimmunology adds another layer. Persistent emotional patterns alter the body's hormonal and immune responses. Chronic fear elevates cortisol and norepinephrine, shifting the immune system toward inflammation, while sustained gratitude and compassion upregulate oxytocin and dopamine, fostering cellular repair and resilience. This biochemical environment, in turn, affects gene expression, a process known as epigenetics. Research by pioneers like Dr. Bruce Lipton has shown that gene activity can be influenced by the emotional and perceptual environment, meaning that your internal frequency is literally writing code for your biology, which then feeds back into the energy field you project. From a systems perspective, the universe operates as a vast network of interconnected oscillators, from subatomic particles to galaxies. Your personal field is one node in this cosmic web, constantly exchanging energy and information. When your dominant vibration aligns with a particular pattern, you create constructive interference, amplifying that pattern in the network. Conversely, Incoherent emotional states cause destructive interference, scattering the signal and reducing the probability of attracting coherent experiences. Over time, consistent frequency alignment can act like a gravitational pull, bending the probabilities of reality so that certain events, people, and opportunities become statistically more likely to enter your life. This alignment process can be understood through the concept of entrainment, a phenomenon in physics where two oscillating systems, when in proximity, begin to synchronize. Originally observed in pendulum clocks by the Dutch scientist Christiaan Huygens in the 17th century, entrainment is now documented in biology, neuroscience, and even social dynamics. Brainwave studies reveal that when individuals are in emotional resonance, for instance, during collective meditation, their neural oscillations and heart rhythms can synchronize not only with each other but also with environmental rhythms, such as the Schumann resonances of the Earth's electromagnetic field. Laboratory experiments in quantum optics provide a parallel. When photons are entangled, their states remain correlated across any distance. While human beings are not entangled particles, in the strict physics sense, researchers such as Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences have explored whether coherent states of consciousness can produce measurable changes in physical systems, from double-slit light interference patterns to random number generators. These findings, though controversial, suggest that the act of holding a stable, coherent emotional frequency might influence probability patterns in subtle but detectable ways. The role of the subconscious is crucial because it operates as the autopilot of your vibrational broadcast. Neuroscientific estimates suggest that over 90% of cognitive processing occurs outside conscious awareness, meaning that your default emotional state, the sum of ingrained beliefs, memories, and emotional habits, is shaping your field most of the time. If these subconscious patterns are rooted in fear, resentment, or unworthiness, the signal you send is fragmented, attracting dissonant situations that mirror those unresolved states. Neuroplasticity research, however, shows that sustained mental rehearsal combined with elevated emotions can rewire neural circuits, essentially training the subconscious to emit a new frequency. In practical terms, shifting your energetic signature is not just about thinking positive. It requires sustained immersion in the emotional reality you wish to project, rehearsing gratitude, love, or empowerment until these states become the baseline. As these emotional signatures stabilize, the coherence in your heart and brain fields increases, strengthening the resonance between your personal field and the quantum field. Over time, life reorganizes itself to reflect this stable signal, not because of mystical coincidence, but because energy systems naturally converge toward compatible frequencies in a universe built on vibration and resonance. From the standpoint of quantum field theory, everything in existence arises from a vast ocean of fluctuating energy, the zero-point field, in which all potential states of matter and energy exist simultaneously as probabilities. The human biofield, composed of electromagnetic and possibly subtler quantum components, is constantly interacting with this ocean, selecting and reinforcing certain potentials over others. In physics, this is described by wave function collapse, but in human experience, it feels like manifestation, the convergence of thought, emotion, and attention into observable reality. Recent studies in neurocardiology have shown that the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart, and that this input influences cognitive processes, emotional regulation, and perception. When the heart is in a coherent state, its rhythmic signals enhance the synchronization of neural networks involved in decision-making and intuition. This may explain why people in states of gratitude or love often report an increased flow of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. The nervous system is not only more attuned to opportunities but also more capable of acting on them without interference from fear-based patterns. Biophoton research adds another dimension. Every cell in the human body emits ultra-weak photons in the visible spectrum, thought to be involved in cellular communication. Fritz Albert Popp's work suggested that these biophotons are coherent, behaving like laser light, and that their emission patterns change in response to emotional and physiological states. In theory, these coherent light emissions could couple with the surrounding electromagnetic environment, subtly altering the local field structure. This would mean that when you hold a stable emotional frequency, you are literally broadcasting a coherent light pattern into space, which may influence both biological and non-biological systems in proximity. In complexity science, such interactions are modeled as feedback loops. The field you emit influences your environment, and the environment's response reinforces the field you emit. If your dominant state is fear, the feedback loop amplifies signals of danger, confirming the belief that the world is unsafe. If your state is gratitude, the loop amplifies signals of support and abundance, confirming the belief that life is cooperative. Over weeks, months, and years, these feedback loops create the scaffolding of your personal reality. And because the subconscious mind operates as a pattern recognition engine, it locks onto data that matches the baseline frequency, filtering out the rest, a form of selective perception that further hardens your vibrational identity. In the language of neuroscience, this selective perception is tied to the reticular activating system, RAS, a network of neurons in the brainstem that filters the vast amount of sensory data entering your awareness. The RAS acts like a vibrational gatekeeper, giving priority to information that matches your dominant internal state. If your subconscious has been conditioned to expect rejection, the RAS will heighten your awareness of microexpressions, tones of voice, and situations that could be interpreted as dismissive, even when neutral or positive signals are present. This is not simply psychological bias. It is a neuroelectromagnetic alignment between your inner frequency and the signals you can detect in the outer world. From a physics perspective, resonance and constructive interference are universal principles, from the oscillations of electrons to the spiral arms of galaxies. When two systems are in resonance, their combined wave amplitude increases, amplifying their effects. This is why emotional coherence is so powerful. A coherent heart-brain state produces an ordered, stable waveform that can lock in with similar patterns in the quantum field, creating a higher probability of intersecting with aligned events and individuals. Just as two tuning forks vibrating at the same frequency can set each other into motion without physical contact, your energetic signature can initiate changes in systems and situations that share its frequency domain. Longitudinal studies on meditation, compassion training, and mindfulness have documented changes not only in brain structure, such as increased thickness in the prefrontal cortex and enhanced connectivity between hemispheres, but also in baseline heart coherence and electromagnetic emission patterns. These physiological shifts suggest that sustained intentional states don't just produce temporary energetic changes, they remodel the human system into a more stable transmitter-receiver within the informational fabric of the universe. The convergence of quantum biology, neuroscience, and field theory points to a provocative idea: reality is participatory at its core. We are not merely observing a fixed universe, we are constantly co-authoring it through the frequencies we stabilize within ourselves. Every moment of sustained gratitude, every act of compassion, every choice to release resentment is not just an internal adjustment, it is a recalibration of the signal you send into the universal field, which in turn reorganizes the probabilities that shape your future. I can continue this into a deeper section about how frequency entrainment on a planetary scale might explain collective shifts in society and mass events, if you want. That would take this idea to a global level, not just the individual. When we scale this concept beyond the individual, we enter the domain of collective coherence, the idea that human fields interact and can synchronize on a societal or even planetary scale. Studies of mass meditation events, such as those conducted in large cities or during global synchronized meditations, have shown statistically significant drops in crime rates, emergency calls, and even geopolitical tension during and shortly after the events. While these correlations remain debated in mainstream science, the data suggests that a coherent group emotional field could function like a large-scale entrainment system, influencing the collective nervous system of entire populations. Earth itself has a measurable electromagnetic heartbeat, known as the Schumann resonances, standing waves in the cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. These resonances oscillate primarily around 7.83 Hz but can vary with solar and geomagnetic activity. Intriguingly, this frequency range overlaps with alpha brainwave rhythms, which are associated with relaxed, meditative, and creative states. It's been hypothesized that when human brain and heart rhythms synchronize with these planetary frequencies, individuals experience heightened clarity, intuition, and interconnectedness. The reverse may also hold. Large-scale human coherence could subtly modulate the amplitude of these resonances, creating a feedback loop between human consciousness and Earth's energetic environment. In this light, fear and division at a mass level are not just social phenomena, they are energetic states that can reverberate through the global field, amplifying instability and discord. Conversely, widespread emotional states like compassion, unity, and collective gratitude can increase global coherence, potentially influencing weather patterns, migratory behaviors of animals, and other sensitive biological systems that respond to electromagnetic shifts. This mirrors what's observed in physics with coupled oscillators. When many oscillators, in this case, human hearts and brains, lock into a shared frequency, the resulting wave is stronger, more stable, and capable of influencing systems far beyond its original source. If we accept this interconnected model, then every act of emotional self-regulation becomes an act of planetary contribution. The vibration you stabilize in yourself is not isolated, it propagates outward, mingling with countless others in the shared field. Over time, clusters of coherent signals can act like attractor basins in complex systems, pulling chaotic patterns toward greater order. This might explain why cultural tipping points, sudden, widespread shifts in values, technology, or social norms, often emerge seemingly out of nowhere. The collective field reaches a resonance threshold, and a rapid reorganization occurs, much like a phase transition in physics. These phase transitions are well documented in nature. Water suddenly freezing into ice when the temperature drops past a threshold, magnetic domains in a metal aligning spontaneously at the Curie point, or a laser beam emerging when photons reach coherence. In complex systems theory, this moment is called criticality, when a system poised between chaos and order reorganizes into a new, more stable state. Human consciousness, when seen as a vast interconnected network of electromagnetic and biochemical oscillators, may follow the same principles. If the collective emotional baseline is dominated by fear, anger, and separation, the critical mass that tips the system toward unity and higher coherence is harder to reach. The global field remains turbulent, much like a fluid in constant churning that resists forming any stable pattern. But when enough individuals sustain coherent emotional states, compassion, gratitude, joy, their combined fields create constructive interference patterns that begin to dominate the network. Once a tipping threshold is reached, the shift can happen rapidly, cascading through the collective like synchronized fireflies suddenly blinking in unison. From the perspective of quantum information theory, these coherent states could be seen as low-entropy configurations in the informational field of the planet. Entropy, in both physics and information theory, is a measure of disorder. Coherence reduces entropy by creating patterns that are more ordered and predictable. In this sense, every person radiating stable, constructive emotional frequencies is acting as a local entropy reducer, feeding order into the planetary field. This could have subtle but far-reaching effects on probability distributions, decision-making trends, and even the types of events most likely to occur globally. Interestingly, research into mirror neurons and social neuroscience provides a biological pathway for this kind of field propagation. Humans are neurologically wired for emotional contagion. Our nervous systems can catch emotional states from others through facial expressions, tone of voice, and subtle physiological cues. If the electromagnetic component of those states also influences others at a non-local level, as some studies on heart field coherence suggest, then emotional states could spread much faster and farther than traditional sensory channels would allow. In this way, a single coherent individual in a chaotic environment is not just resisting the disorder, they may be actively seeding coherence into the collective matrix. Over time, this points to a model where personal transformation and global transformation are not separate processes but aspects of the same phenomenon. The inner work of shifting your subconscious vibration is simultaneously the outer work of reshaping the world's frequency landscape, and as coherence grows, the universe itself reorganizes to reflect that elevated state, from the smallest interpersonal interactions to the largest planetary events. If we take this model further into the realm of advanced physics and cosmology, it suggests that consciousness may operate as a phase-ordering field embedded in the fabric of spacetime itself. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, particularly the participatory anthropic principle proposed by physicist John Archibald Wheeler, imply that observers are not passive, but integral to the unfolding of reality. In this framework, the frequencies generated by thought and emotion are not just byproducts of biology, they are active participants in the selection of which potential futures crystallize from the quantum field. In holographic universe theories, such as those explored by physicist David Bohm, reality is described as an interconnected whole where every part contains the information of the whole, much like a hologram. Your vibrational signature could then be seen as a localized interference pattern that subtly alters the overall holographic projection. When many such localized patterns overlap coherently, the global image, the reality we collectively experience, shifts its form. This would explain why cultural renaissances, sudden scientific breakthroughs, or collective awakenings often emerge in clusters, as though a deeper field of order has rippled through humanity simultaneously. Biologically, the connectome of the brain, the full map of neural connections, is a microcosmic reflection of these cosmic principles. Neural synchrony, where different regions of the brain oscillate in phase, is associated with peak states of creativity, problem-solving, and flow. The human biofield, in this analogy, is like a planetary-scale connectome, with each individual functioning as a neuron whose firing pattern, emotional frequency, contributes to the state of the whole. Just as the brain's coherence determines the clarity of thought, the planet's coherence may determine the clarity of humanity's collective trajectory. Emerging research in quantum biology adds weight to the possibility that living systems may already be using quantum-level processes to maintain coherence over vast scales. Evidence from studies of avian navigation, photosynthetic efficiency, and even human olfaction shows that quantum effects can persist in warm, complex environments. If our cells, and particularly our neural and cardiac systems, are quantum coherent to some degree, then the frequencies we generate may interact with the zero-point field in a way that is both non-local and instantaneous. This leads to a profound implication: every moment you hold a coherent state, you are not merely improving your personal experience, you are actively participating in the tuning of the universal symphony. The subconscious patterns you rewrite, the emotions you stabilize, and the frequencies you radiate become threads in the evolving fabric of reality. When enough of us weave those threads with intention and harmony, the pattern changes for everyone. And just as in physics, where a single photon can trigger a cascade in a laser, a single individual sustaining a high-frequency coherence could catalyze transformations on a scale far beyond their own life. Seen through the lens of nonlinear dynamics, even a small coherent input into a chaotic system can lead to disproportionate outcomes, an effect known as the butterfly effect. In meteorology, the flap of a butterfly's wings can, under the right conditions, influence weather systems across the globe. In human consciousness, a single act of profound coherence, an individual sustaining deep compassion or unwavering gratitude, might ripple through the collective field in ways that subtly shift the probabilities of events far beyond their personal sphere. The mechanism for this could involve what physicist Ervin Laszlo calls the Akashic field, a universal information matrix that stores and transmits patterns across time and space. In this model, every thought, emotion, and action imprints a frequency pattern into this field, and coherent patterns have a higher chance of persisting and influencing future interactions. The subconscious mind acts as both transmitter and receiver in this process. It imprints your vibrational code into the field while simultaneously tuning itself to patterns that match it, creating a self-reinforcing feedback loop between you and the universe. On the neurophysiological level, this is mirrored by Hebbian learning. Neurons that fire together, wire together. When you repeatedly experience an emotional state, you strengthen the neural circuits associated with it, making it easier to return to that state in the future. Over time, the emotional frequency becomes your default operating system. If that frequency is fear, you become an expert in detecting and amplifying threat patterns. If it is love, you become attuned to opportunities for connection and creation. The external world then organizes itself around this inner template, not because of wishful thinking, but because your perception, behavior, and energetic field are all synchronized with it. In wave mechanics, coherence is the precondition for amplification. Two waves out of sync can cancel each other out, but two waves perfectly in phase can merge into a single wave of far greater amplitude. This principle is at work in the human biofield. When heart and brain rhythms synchronize, they produce a field that is both stronger and more ordered, capable of entraining nearby systems. When multiple humans achieve this coherence together, the resulting field may be exponentially more powerful than the sum of its parts, a kind of harmonic convergence that can bend collective trajectories. This is why transforming subconscious emotional patterns is not merely self-help, it is a form of field engineering. Every coherent state you sustain is like tuning your personal instrument so that it plays in harmony with the deeper music of the cosmos. And in a universe built on vibration, harmony is not just aesthetic, it is generative, capable of bringing forth entirely new realities from the sea of infinite potential. In the framework of resonance systems, when your personal field locks into a stable, coherent frequency, it begins to act like a tuning fork in the quantum field, subtly encouraging surrounding systems, people, events, even environmental conditions, to shift toward the same vibration. This isn't metaphorical poetry. Laboratory studies in bioelectromagnetics have shown that weak, coherent signals can entrain stronger but less organized signals if maintained consistently over time. In physics, this is called phase locking, and in human terms, it's what happens when one person's calm presence steadies a chaotic room, or when a leader's inspired vision ignites a shared sense of purpose in a group. The subconscious plays the role of the frequency stabilizer here. Your conscious mind can choose a state momentarily, but unless it penetrates the subconscious, the realm of deep-seated beliefs, stored emotional memories, and autonomic patterns, the signal will waver. That's why practices like deep meditation, hypnotic reprogramming, and immersive visualization can be so potent. They bypass the analytical mind and install a new vibrational pattern directly into the operating system. Once embedded, this pattern runs automatically, broadcasting coherence even when you're not consciously trying. On a quantum information level, your biofield might be functioning as both an emitter and a modulator of probability waves. Coherence here acts like narrowing the bandwidth of a radio signal. Instead of scattering energy across many random channels, you focus it into one precise frequency. In quantum physics, such narrowing increases the likelihood of certain interactions, a process analogous to constructive interference in wave mechanics, where targeted alignment dramatically amplifies effect. This is also consistent with the principle of least action in physics, where systems tend toward the most efficient path from one state to another. A coherent emotional field could serve as an energetic path of least resistance, meaning that events and opportunities aligning with your frequency require less energy cost to manifest, making them statistically more probable in the vast landscape of possibilities. At a collective scale, when enough individuals sustain such coherence, the effect may become nonlinear, the change accelerates, bypassing incremental shifts and instead jumping to a new order of reality. In complexity theory, this is called a bifurcation point, where the old system loses stability and a new pattern emerges. Humanity may be approaching such points more often now, as global communication and shared emotional experiences spread frequencies faster than at any other time in history. In the lens of field theory, a coherent human being functions like a localized region of order in an otherwise fluctuating sea of potential. Just as a laser emerges when photons align in both phase and direction, a coherent emotional state aligns countless microsignals in your nervous system, your electromagnetic emissions, and possibly even your quantum-level biological processes. This alignment produces what physicists would call a macroscopic quantum state, rare in nature outside of phenomena like superconductivity, but here achieved biologically through sustained intention and emotion. Once such a state is achieved, it doesn't just remain within you, it propagates. Research in magnetoreception shows that certain biological systems can detect and respond to fields far weaker than previously thought possible. If human physiology shares this sensitivity, then our coherent heart-brain field could be detected, consciously or unconsciously, by others within range, influencing their physiology in subtle ways. This could explain why collective meditations, prayer circles, or even gatherings with a shared emotional focus have measurable effects on group behavior and mood. The subconscious mind's role in this is to act as the carrier wave. In telecommunications, a carrier wave is a stable frequency onto which information is encoded. Your subconscious frequency, shaped by years of emotional conditioning, becomes the carrier wave onto which your moment-to-moment thoughts and intentions are modulated. If the carrier wave is stable and coherent, the information encoded on it, your intentions, desires, visions, transmits cleanly into the universal field. If it's unstable, the signal distorts, and reality reflects back mixed or chaotic results. This perspective also fits within Bohm's implicate order, the idea that reality unfolds from a deeper, hidden layer where everything is interconnected beyond space and time. In the implicate order, your frequency doesn't need to travel anywhere, it already exists everywhere as a pattern in the underlying field. When you shift your inner state, you're not sending a signal outward, you're tuning into a version of reality that matches your new vibration, and the explicate, visible, order rearranges to match. From a thermodynamic point of view, coherence is an energy-efficient state. A disordered system wastes energy through internal conflict and random fluctuations, while a coherent system channels its energy into constructive work. This may be why people in highly coherent emotional states often report needing less effort to achieve their goals. The energy that would have been lost to inner friction is now available for focus creation. In this way, your vibrational signature is not just a personal phenomenon, it is a participatory force in the universe's self-organizing dynamics. Every coherent state you sustain becomes a node of order in the cosmic network, pulling probability patterns toward itself, guiding the dance of particles and events, and helping the universe shape itself into higher forms of harmony. When viewed through the framework of quantum coherence in living systems, this suggests that the body is not merely a biochemical machine, but a resonant quantum biological instrument continuously interacting with the informational fabric of reality. In quantum biology, phenomena such as long-range coherence in photosynthetic complexes, spin-based magnetoreception in migratory birds, and quantum tunneling in enzymatic reactions demonstrate that living systems can sustain quantum effects at scales and temperatures once thought impossible. If our nervous and cardiac systems harness similar principles, then emotional frequency is not just metaphorical energy, it is a measurable, physical state that can couple with the zero-point field. The subconscious operates as the persistent oscillator in this equation. Your conscious mind may decide to think positively for an hour, but it is the subconscious that maintains the base frequency during the remaining 23 hours of the day. This base frequency determines how your brain's reticular activating system filters reality, how your endocrine system modulates hormones, and how your electromagnetic emissions stabilize in the field. Over time, the subconscious locks in the baseline vibration, creating what could be described in physics as a stable attractor state, a frequency pattern that resists change unless deliberately reprogrammed. From the perspective of non-locality, once a coherent state is established, its influence does not decay strictly with distance in the same way classical fields do. In the quantum realm, correlations between systems can persist regardless of separation, as in entanglement experiments where measurements on one particle instantaneously affect its partner across vast distances. While human emotional fields are not the same as entangled particles, if consciousness has a non-local component, as suggested by certain interpretations of quantum mind theory, then coherence in one location could influence matching states elsewhere without any classical signal transmission. The implications of this for collective human evolution are profound. If enough individuals shift their subconscious vibrational baseline toward coherence, the global field could reach a resonance threshold where the dominant patterns of fear, scarcity, and separation lose their organizing power. At that point, the system could undergo a rapid phase transition toward unity, much like a supercooled liquid suddenly crystallizing when the right seed pattern is introduced. This is not utopian fantasy, it is consistent with how complex systems self-organize under persistent, coherent input. Seen in this light, each act of internal alignment, each time you transform fear into trust, resentment into forgiveness, or isolation into connection, is not just personal healing. It is field-level engineering, adding another quantum of coherence to the planetary matrix. And in a universe where form follows frequency, every additional unit of coherence tilts the balance of probability toward futures defined by harmony rather than fragmentation. In the framework of self-organizing systems, once coherence surpasses a certain critical mass, the shift from disorder to order is not gradual, it's explosive. This is akin to spontaneous symmetry breaking in physics, where a system that appears uniform and random suddenly organizes into a new structure when a hidden ordering principle becomes dominant. In the human collective field, that hidden principle is vibrational resonance. When enough individual frequencies stabilize in harmony, the global pattern can reorganize almost instantly, creating a new baseline reality for everyone within that field. From a biophysical standpoint, your body is already primed for such synchronization. Every cell contains microtubules, protein structures that, according to research by Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose in the Orchestrated Objective Reduction (ORCHESTRA) model, may support quantum coherence. If these structures act as biological waveguides for vibrational information, then a coherent emotional state could resonate not only through your neural networks and heart rhythms but also through quantum processes within your cells. This could explain why profound emotional shifts can produce rapid changes in health, perception, and behavior. The transformation is happening at multiple scales simultaneously. The feedback loop between the individual and the field is what makes this process so powerful. Your subconscious sets a vibrational baseline. That baseline organizes your physiology and perception. Your perception influences your actions alter the environment reflects back signals that reinforce your baseline. Break the loop at the subconscious level, and the entire chain reorganizes. This is why deep internal work produces external change without the same force or struggle. You've changed the template that reality is referencing. Even astrophysical analogies mirror this idea. In galaxies, gravitational resonance between stars and spiral density waves can organize billions of suns into harmonious patterns without any central command. Likewise, in the human collective, emotional resonance could organize millions of individuals into patterns of cooperation, creativity, and shared vision, not through external control, but through the intrinsic pull of coherent vibration. This paints a radical picture. every subconscious shift toward coherence is not a private event, but a structural adjustment in the information architecture of reality. You're not just healing yourself, you're participating in the repatterning of the cosmic field, adding order to the universal wave and making certain timelines more probable while others fade from potential. And because this repatterning follows principles of resonance, each coherent signal amplifies others, accelerating the rate at which the collective field can reorganize into a higher state of harmony. In quantum thermodynamics, there's a principle known as dissipative structure formation, first described by Ilya Prigogine. It explains how systems far from equilibrium, instead of falling apart into chaos, can spontaneously reorganize into more complex, ordered states when energy flows through them in a sustained, coherent way. Human consciousness, and especially the subconscious vibrational baseline, behaves in a similar manner. When you introduce consistent emotional coherence, gratitude, compassion, inner calm, you're injecting ordered energy into the system of your body-mind. Over time, this can trigger a reorganization at every scale, from neural pathways to subtle electromagnetic fields, resulting in a more harmonious internal and external reality. The subconscious frequency is the anchor in this process. Think of it like the carrier tone in a radio broadcast. It is continuous, unwavering, and shapes everything that can be transmitted. Your conscious intentions are like the audio riding on top of this tone. If the carrier is noisy or unstable, the signal becomes distorted, no matter how positive your thoughts seem. This is why many people try to change their lives with affirmations alone but see little change. The subconscious carrier wave is still broadcasting the old program. In the holographic model of the universe, as proposed by Bohm and later expanded by Karl Pribram in neuroscience, each point in space contains the whole in enfolded form. This means that changing your own vibrational pattern doesn't just affect your immediate surroundings, it subtly shifts the entire holographic field. The change might be imperceptible at first, like a single pixel in an image changing color, but when enough pixels align, the whole picture transforms. There's also an electrodynamic resonance principle at play. When multiple oscillators, people, match frequencies, their combined amplitude grows exponentially rather than linearly. This is why collective coherence is far more potent than isolated effort. A group of individuals holding a synchronized emotional frequency can act like a massive coherent antenna, radiating a signal strong enough to influence the informational field at scales beyond what any single person could achieve. Studies of group meditation have hinted at this effect, showing reductions in societal stress indicators during periods of collective coherence. Ultimately, the science and metaphysics converge on the same insight: your subconscious vibration is both a personal reality creator and a contributor to the planetary coherence field. Each time you stabilize in love, gratitude, or deep presence, you're not just feeling better, you're feeding a self-organizing pattern that spans individuals, societies, and potentially the cosmos itself. In this model, inner work becomes the most direct form of planetary work, and coherence is the universal language by which all levels of reality communicate. In complexity theory, this process can be understood through the lens of attractor dynamics. An attractor is a stable pattern toward which a system tends to evolve over time. Your subconscious vibrational baseline acts as such an attractor, pulling your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and external circumstances into configurations that match its frequency. The stronger and more coherent the attractor, the more effortlessly life organizes around it. When enough individuals share a similar coherent attractor, for example, a sustained state of compassion, their personal fields can merge into a collective attractor, reorganizing social dynamics and cultural values without top-down enforcement. From a biophysical perspective, this might be mediated by the coupling of electromagnetic and quantum signals within the body's cellular structures. Microtubules, already implicated in quantum-level biological processes, could serve as resonant waveguides that synchronize the oscillations of entire networks of cells. In such a state, the body becomes a unified, phase-locked oscillator, broadcasting a stable vibrational pattern into the surrounding field. The subconscious mind's role is to maintain this pattern automatically, ensuring that the signal doesn't collapse into incoherence when the conscious mind is distracted or stressed. The feedback loop between the personal field and the universal field is what makes this so powerful. Each coherent signal you emit interacts with the zero-point field, the quantum substrate that contains all potential realities, and slightly biases probability distributions toward outcomes resonant with your frequency. When the field reflects those probabilities back to you in the form of events and synchronicities, your subconscious takes this as evidence that the world is a certain way, reinforcing the baseline frequency. This self-reinforcing cycle can work in your favor when the baseline is coherent, or against you when it's chaotic. Even in astrophysics, resonance is a driver of large-scale order. Planetary systems stabilize when orbital resonances lock bodies into rhythmic relationships. Galactic structures emerge from gravitational harmonics among billions of stars. If we see human consciousness as a planetary-scale resonant network, then the emotional frequencies we sustain are like gravitational forces in the collective psyche, subtly shaping the trajectories of relationships, communities, and civilizations. This perspective reframes inner alignment as field architecture. You are not a passive passenger in a predetermined universe, but a co-designer, continually shaping the informational and energetic blueprint from which reality unfolds. And when enough coherent patterns converge, the system doesn't just improve incrementally, it undergoes a qualitative leap, reorganizing into a new order of being that was always latent in the field, waiting for the right frequency to unlock it. In synergetics, the science of self-organization pioneered by Hermann Haken, such qualitative leaps are called order parameter shifts. An order parameter is the dominant pattern that governs the behavior of a system's components. In human terms, your subconscious vibration acts as an order parameter for your personal reality. It subtly dictates how your cells behave, how your brain networks fire, what your nervous system prioritizes, and even what external circumstances gravitate toward you. When the order parameter changes, for example, from a baseline of fear to one of coherence and gratitude, all dependent subsystems reorganize around the new frequency. What's remarkable is that the energy cost of this reorganization can be minimal if the shift happens through resonance rather than force. In physics, a resonant input can reorganize a system with a fraction of the energy that brute force disruption would require. This is why inner vibrational work can feel effortless once the subconscious is aligned. Instead of pushing against reality, you're tuning into it. Your frequency becomes the path of least resistance for the unfolding of events. From the standpoint of information theory, coherence is a low-entropy state in which information flows more efficiently. When your subconscious frequency is coherent, neural signaling becomes more synchronized, hormonal cascades are better regulated, and perception filters are less biased by noise. This enhances pattern recognition and intuitive insight, allowing you to notice subtle opportunities and connections that incoherent states would obscure. Over time, this accelerates the feedback loop between intention and manifestation, as the system becomes better at detecting and acting on resonant probabilities. Even in plasma physics and cosmology, similar principles apply. Vast interstellar plasma filaments can self-organize into coherent structures under the influence of magnetic and gravitational fields, creating the cosmic web of galaxies. Likewise, the human collective, interconnected through electromagnetic, social, and possibly non-local quantum channels, can self-organize when a strong enough field of coherence emerges. This field acts like a cosmic scale attractor, guiding millions towards synchronized patterns of thought, feeling, and action without direct communication. Ultimately, this suggests that your subconscious frequency is not simply broadcasting into the universe, it is co-evolving with it. Every shift you make is both a personal and a cosmic event, subtly altering the universe's informational geometry. The more stable and coherent your vibration, the more you become a structural node in the universal matrix, a point around which reality itself can reorganize into higher levels of order, beauty, and possibility. In nonlinear wave dynamics, such structural nodes act much like solitons, self-reinforcing wave packets that travel through a medium without dispersing. A coherent subconscious frequency functions in a similar way. Once established, it can propagate through the human energetic and informational network, maintaining its integrity across time and space. This is why a single deeply coherent individual can influence many others without overt action, simply through presence and interaction. Their vibrational state moves through conversations, relationships, and even silent proximity, subtly shifting the emotional and cognitive states of those they encounter. From the perspective of morphic field theory, as proposed by Rupert Sheldrake, every pattern of behavior, thought, or emotion contributes to a collective memory field that makes it easier for others to replicate the same pattern. When you stabilize gratitude, compassion, or joy at the subconscious level, you are effectively strengthening that frequency in the morphic field, lowering the energetic threshold for others to access it. Over time, this can lead to rapid cultural or societal adoption of certain emotional norms, as the path to coherence becomes collectively well-trodden. On a quantum coherence scale, such stability might even be tied to biological superconductivity-like phenomena. While still theoretical in humans, certain microstructures in biology, such as the arrangement of water molecules around proteins or the geometry of cytoskeletal filaments, could support coherent quantum states. If so, a sustained emotional frequency might literally alter the conductivity of energy and information flow in the body, making it a more efficient transmitter-receiver in the universal field. In game theory terms, the spread of coherence behaves like a cooperative strategy that becomes evolutionarily stable when enough participants adopt it. Initially, coherent individuals may be outnumbered and seem like anomalies in a chaotic system, but as their influence subtly shifts local interactions toward cooperation and trust, these pockets of order expand. When the tipping point is reached, cooperation, and by extension, vibrational coherence, becomes the dominant strategy in the collective game, locking in a new, higher baseline frequency for the entire system. This is why inner alignment is not just a personal luxury, it is a form of planetary engineering through resonance. Each coherent subconscious pattern you stabilize is like a seed crystal dropped into a supersaturated solution. It gives the surrounding chaos a template for order. And once crystallization begins, it can sweep through the medium with remarkable speed, reorganizing vast swaths of the system in accordance with the new pattern. In the language of the cosmos, your frequency becomes a blueprint, and reality, both personal and collective, cannot help but grow around it. In cosmological structure formation, small fluctuations in the early universe, quantum ripples in the primordial field, eventually seeded the vast cosmic web of galaxies we see today. These ripples were minuscule, yet over billions of years, gravitational resonance amplified them into structures spanning hundreds of millions of light-years. Your subconscious frequency operates in a similar way. A seemingly small and private vibrational shift can, through persistent resonance and feedback, shape large-scale patterns in your life and contribute to the broader collective field. From the lens of biofield science, which studies the electromagnetic and possibly quantum aspects of living systems, the body is not an isolated generator of energy but a node in an interconnected matrix. Measurements of the heart's electromagnetic field show it extends several feet beyond the body, but subtle field theories suggest it may extend far further, overlapping with and interacting with the fields of others. When your subconscious maintains coherence, the informational structure in this field remains ordered, allowing it to act as a reference signal for nearby systems. This reference signal can help other fields entrain toward greater stability, much like a precision clock can synchronize less accurate clocks around it. In quantum decision theory, reality unfolds as a superposition of potential pathways, with observation and interaction influencing which branch becomes actualized. While classical decision-making assumes choices are linear and conscious, this framework implies that subconscious frequency biases the probability distribution long before conscious awareness is engaged. If your baseline vibration is aligned with trust, connection, and creative possibility, then the probability weight shifts toward outcomes that match those qualities, not because of random chance, but because your entire perceptual and energetic apparatus is tuned to notice, select, and amplify them. Even in ecological systems, coherence is a catalyst for resilience. Ecosystems where feedback loops are balanced, where energy flows are efficient and waste is minimal, can withstand shocks and reorganize without collapsing. On the human level, a coherent subconscious baseline makes you more resilient to external stressors, because your energy is not constantly dissipated in internal conflict or contradictory signaling. This stability makes you a more effective contributor to any collective you belong to, whether that's a family, a community, or the planetary human network. Ultimately, when you stabilize a coherent frequency at the subconscious level, you are engaging in deep patterning of the universal field. You're not forcing reality into shape, you're creating an attractor that reality naturally organizes around. This is the same principle that shapes galaxies, orchestrates the synchronized flight of starlings, and allows crystals to form perfect lattices. In a universe built on resonance and feedback, the vibration you hold becomes both your personal destiny and a building block in the shared architecture of existence. In fractal geometry, patterns repeat across vastly different scales, from the spiraling arms of galaxies to the branching of neurons in the brain. Your subconscious frequency functions like the seed pattern of a fractal. Once established, it replicates its structure through every layer of your reality, from your physiology to your relationships to the opportunities that appear in your life. Just as a small change in the initial parameters of a fractal equation can alter the entire infinite pattern that unfolds, a subtle shift in your subconscious vibration can ripple outward to reshape the entire tapestry of your experience. From the standpoint of coherent domain theory in biophysics, water molecules in the body, which make up around 99% of our molecular composition, can organize into large, phase-locked structures that store and transmit electromagnetic information. Research by Emilio Del Giudice and others suggests that these coherent domains can act like biological, memory fields, retaining vibrational imprints from both internal emotional states and external influences. If emotional coherence imprints order onto these molecular networks, the body becomes not just a vessel for vibration, but a living resonator, continually reinforcing and broadcasting the subconscious baseline to the surrounding field. In nonlinear systems, there is a phenomenon called entrainment cascades, where synchronization at one level triggers synchronization at progressively larger scales. A coherent frequency in your heart-brain system can entrain your cellular rhythms, which can entrain your hormonal cycles, which can entrain your behavioral patterns, and once your external actions reflect this inner order, they can entrain social interactions and even larger cultural dynamics. The subconscious ensures this process is sustained, functioning like a central oscillator that keeps the entire system in tune. From a field-theoretic perspective, this creates a stable informational node in the zero-point field, akin to a fixed point in a sea of fluctuating probabilities. Fixed points are crucial in physics because they anchor patterns, allowing them to persist over time. A person with a coherent subconscious vibration becomes such a fixed point in the collective human field, offering stability to others who are still oscillating between states. Over time, enough fixed points can shift the global baseline frequency, just as a network of synchronized metronomes will eventually bring all others into phase. This reveals a profound truth: transforming your subconscious vibration is not an isolated act of self-improvement, it is scale-free participation in the universe's self-organizing process. Whether you are aware of it or not, the coherence you hold becomes part of the fractal code that the cosmos references when generating new patterns. And in a reality where structure follows frequency, Each moment of sustained harmony in you writes a line of order into the blueprint of existence itself. In the end, this understanding dissolves the boundary between the personal and the cosmic. The frequency you hold is not merely a private state, locked inside your mind and body. It is a living signal that threads itself into the very weave of reality. Every coherent thought, every act of compassion, every moment you choose alignment over fear sends a ripple through the universal field, reinforcing patterns of order that extend far beyond your own life. You are both the transmitter and the receiver, both the sculptor and the clay. The subconscious is your hidden engine, continually broadcasting the vibrational blueprint by which your reality takes shape. And as you refine that blueprint, you contribute to the refinement of the collective, the shared field in which humanity, the earth, and even the stars participate. In this way, the work is simple yet infinitely significant: to live as a conscious frequency, to stabilize coherence as your natural state, and to remember that the universe is always listening, not to your words, but to the resonance you have become. When you embody that truth, you no longer chase the future, you become the field from which the future is born.